All right, this is the Big Douglas Show, a morning edition. We have Grant Paulsen from 106.7 The Fan with us. Grant, how are you?
I'm good, Douglas. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for getting up early with us this morning. It's 10 o'clock now as we record. So I thought, what is your go-to breakfast?
It's a great question. If I have anything I want, I'm gonna probably go like bagel and cream cheese. I think is probably about as good as it gets. I also love a bacon or sausage, egg, and cheese, like a biscuit. Oh, can't go wrong with that. My favorite breakfast right now that you can get anywhere is at the Great American restaurants like Best Buns or Mike's American Grill. They make a bacon, egg, and cheese on I think it's called icebox bread, and it is
Oh,
it's the best breakfast sandwich I've ever eaten. It's so good.
and what kind of bread are we talking about there? What can you describe? Is that a thick slice of bread?
Yeah, we're looking at it's almost like what you'd eat a grilled cheese. You know what I'm saying? Like it's white
Okay.
bread, sliced in half, and then they just kind of treat it on each side, kind of crust, you know, um, make it firm and toast it up a little bit, and then it's the egg. You can get whatever they do scrambled egg or fried egg, what have you. I like the fried kind of runny egg on it with the bacon or the sausage. It's so good.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, I had a number of different ways we could have started out today. We'll get to the football team. The schedule is releasing as we speak or leaking as we speak. But I've got to know, you got 2 days calling the Nationals. It had to be a thrill.
Oh, it was the coolest experience ever. In my career, I've gotten to do a few really awesome things that, are hard to rank, so to speak, but that's right there at the top of the list with getting to broadcast outside of Capital One Arena as fans streamed out of the watch party when the Caps won the Stanley Cup in 2018. I'd put it up there with being on a World Series bus in the parade with thousands of people, lining the streets after the Nats won their championship. It was just an honor to be on the air talking ball on mass and during a game. It's not something I anticipated happening. Lightning kind of struck. It was crazy. They called me last minute and asked if I could do it. And, I didn't think I was prepared or probably qualified, but I said yes anyway, because why wouldn't I?
That's
I'd
right.
say yes. I'd say yes if, Ron Rivera called me and asked me to play tight end on Sunday. So why not? I mean, it's you called me. It's not my fault you're asking me to do it. So I had a lot of fun. And, my goal was to be myself, to not try to be a FP or a former player or to pretend like I played in the big leagues. Um, so it was going to be different than what people are used to, and different isn't always received very well. But people were mostly positive, and more importantly, I had a lot of fun.
What was the prep like for that?
Well, there wasn't a lot of prep. I mean, I found out late at night the night before, and it was a day
Okay.
game. So I guess I found out I was gonna do TV color, somewhere between 11 p.m. and midnight, something like that. And I was at the ballpark at 9 a.m. the next day, and in the meantime, I needed to get a suit because my suit was at the dry cleaners, and had to get a haircut. So I sat down to really legitimately start prepping a little after 9 a.m. in the booth, and we went on the air at noon. So the prep for me, largely was kind of just how I live my life. I mean, I talk about the team on the air every single day. So I
Sure.
know the players inside and out. I know the organization inside and out from doing afternoon drive on the flagship. I obviously have done post game shows on the radio for the Nationals as well. As far as the Marlins go, I spent a little more time digging into them. I do a national baseball show called on MLB Network Radio called Minors and Majors. So I have a pretty good feel for, the basics of every team in the big leagues, just doing a national show on all the clubs, all the divisions. But I wanted to dig a little deeper into some of the guys I didn't know. And I know Lewis Brinson came over and then the trade that he came in and anecdotes like that. But I had to dig into some of the backgrounds of a couple of the other guys. So I spent some time doing that. I spent some time prepping some specific talking points on a couple Nats players. And after that, it was just kind of seeing where the game took us.
Yeah, well, it was awesome, and I know you were thrilled for it for sure.
It was cool, man. I appreciate you saying that. And it was just, it's one of those things where if you would have asked me like the day before I got to do it, like, hey, when are you going to be in the booth calling a big league game? I'd be like, hey, it'd be awesome if in the next 10 years at some point like that opportunity presented itself. And then the next day it happened. It was really cool.
Truth is stranger than fiction, as they say. There's a whole lot of unbelievable going around in the district right now. The Wizards, I mean, and not weeks ago, I thought they were a dumpster fire. They turned it around. The Washington football team, if you'd have thought that they were in a playoff game. In fact, I think you were on the show right before that playoff game. We've had the draft now. How did you feel the draft went? How did you find that they did?
I liked the draft class a lot. I've liked their offseason a lot. There were a few picks that weren't really for me. I would never draft a long snapper, with all due respect to the cheese man.
Yeah, that's right.
I just wouldn't do that ever at any point, like in any round. If the draft was 10 rounds deep, I wouldn't do that. So that was odd to me. There were a couple things like that, but that late in the draft, I mean, you're just kind of letting your board speak to you a little bit. I thought the Jamin Davis pick, while it wasn't my prediction, I thought they were going to go Usu Koromoa. I obviously didn't know he had a heart condition pop up at the last minute. I think they probably, just talking to people, would have gone with Jamin Davis anyway. They really, really like him. It's a little bit more of a traditional linebacker for Rivera from what he's used to, playing down in, down out, 3 downs for him in his defense. Whereas Owusu Koromoa is a little bit more of a, I'd say, a risk, maybe a boomer bust option, as a guy who's a little undersized but can play some safety as well. I love his playmaking ability. Having said that, the first round pick, spoke to me. I like that. Sam Cosmi out of Texas, I thought was an unbelievable value in the second round. A little bit raw and needs some work, but if they're able to potentially sign Charles Leno, who they've been talking to, that's a big deal. I also think Cornelius Lucas, who played admirably last year. I mean, one of the more
I
under
thought he
talked.
played well.
Yeah, it was an under talked about story, is how good he was, and still is, in my opinion. So if he's got to start a few games while Cosme's getting up to speed, that doesn't really concern me that much. So I like that. I thought the De'Ami Brown pick was really smart, and I'm hoping if he can, be that third round value wide receiver, maybe not to the extent of McLaurin, but we see that from time to time where a guy slips and is better maybe than his draft status, and I think he is with his speed. You could put him outside with McLaurin on the other side, and it allows you to kick Curtis Samuel into the slot. And I think that's where Samuel's at his best. I mean, his numbers proved that last year. He ran in the slot like 60% of the time, like more last year than the year before with Scott Turner. And he was the best he's ever been last year. So I want him in the slot more often. So I say all that to say, there were some other value grabs as they went. They prioritized speed, seems like, and I don't know these guys, but the people I talk to who follow the draft for a living seem to think they went with some high character options as well, which normally if you bet on guys like that, you're in a good spot. So I liked it overall. I felt really good about it.
When Ron says that Davis was the number one defensive player on their board, does that mean to you that Parsons was not on the board at all because of those character concerns that you talked about? Or do you think that they just meant that he was first on the board when they selected because Parsons had already been taken?
So I'm sure that he was first on the board when they selected, right? That's why they took him. I read those comments to mean he was the best defensive player in the draft, according to them. And so
Right.
that would mean to me that they had major issues or concerns, is a better word, with Parsons, with the red flags. I find it hard to believe that you can look at the measurables and the production of Micah Parsons if there was no character issue and not think he's the best linebacker in the draft. I mean, for me, his game is pretty elite and is going to be special at the next level, assuming he stays on the field, stays out of trouble, and can walk the straight and narrow. Having said that, I took Rivera's comment to mean Jamin Davis was their guy all along. That's the guy they really wanted. That's the guy they prioritized. And I believe that. I do think teams say that after they draft guys all the time. Like, no one's ever drafted someone and said he was our third best player on our board. So I always kind of take that with a grain of salt, but I get the sense, again, just based on some of the conversations I've had, that they really were high on him and they were very happy that he was available there.
Drafting linebacker that high would make you feel like he's going to play middle, right? They didn't draft him to play outside, or what?
Traditionally, yeah, I would say so. I think he can do that. I think he will do a lot of that. I don't know, though, that they would care to, in other words, if they view him as an off-ball linebacker, or, I think initially if he's playing not on the inside, I think it would be on the strong side, frankly, because he can run and cover, and that's an asset and a strength right now. But I don't know that they would hesitate to draft him if they view him as a Sam or, a strong side guy at that spot at 19, just because, that's middle linebacker territory. I think, as we've seen with some other guys like Brandon Sheriff, who they're now paying almost $20 million, even though he's only a guard, like they kind of think if you're a really good football player, you're a good football player. We need, and this is Rivera's mindset, I'm guessing, we need as many of those guys as possible. I need guys who can win one-on-one matchups. I need guys who are going to make Pro Bowls. And so if that means taking a guard at 5 or paying a guard close to 20 mil, which is kind of outrageous at that position, then they'll do it.
The night of the draft, we were texting back and forth. I was certain that if Fields fell, they would make a move. They did not. Do you think they ever even considered that? And do you think if Trey Lance had been there instead of Fields, they would have been more eager?
Good questions. No, I don't think they ever considered trading up to get a quarterback. I'm in the minority, I think, on this. I think since the day they went and got Ryan Fitzpatrick, I don't think they've really spent a whole lot of time thinking about the quarterback position. If one fell into their lap at 19, maybe that would have been a different combo. Mac Jones, or it would have taken a weird draft process. But if somehow Justin Fields did, which was never likely and was never going to happen, that's a different conversation. I just stayed put, and now you've come to me. Now what do I do? Having said all that, I had heard early on in the process that they weren't, all in or in love with Trey Lance. I didn't really follow up a whole lot close to the end because it looked like he was going in the top 5, and I didn't think they were trading up to go get him. So I don't know. I don't expect or think that they would have traded up if it was Lance who fell out of the top 10. I just think that they viewed the QB position as set for this year. They're trying to make the playoffs for the second time in 2 years. I think they're trying to be the first team in the division to win the East in consecutive years and well over a decade. And they felt like the best way to do that, and I like this logic, surround Ryan Fitzpatrick with as many pieces as possible. You can have your cake and eat it too here, in the sense that you drafted a linebacker who's a long-term answer. You drafted a tackle who hopefully is going to start on the left side for you for many years to come. With Fitzpatrick as a 1-year guy, and Ron has floated the idea that he could even be a 2-year guy if he plays really well and they keep him around. I'm not sure that I buy that. But you just kick the can down the road. So now next offseason, you got to go trade for a veteran, trade up and take someone in the top 5. You're going to have to find your quarterback. But as soon as they went and got Fitz, I thought that was them. There was a couple roads you could drive down, and that was all right, we're going veteran. We're trying to win 10 games this season, and we'll worry about quarterback next year.
When you were on the show last time, we were having this great debate about what it would take to get Deshaun Watson. Now, we are obviously well past that, but we are back to another quarterback that everybody is talking about. Aaron Rodgers, do you think he will leave Green Bay? And do you think Washington is a good fit for him? And would Ron be interested in giving up the assets it would take to get a guy in like that?
First and foremost, they should do everything that in their power to trade for Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. There are members of the fan base and even in the local media that are against the idea of bringing him in. I am 100% willing to endorse doing anything to trade for Aaron Rodgers. You're talking about the best quarterback in football, arguably, since he took over as a starter. Brady's won more, and Peyton Manning, there's other guys in that conversation, but he's in that discussion. He is perennially an MVP candidate. He may have had the best year of his career, throwing for almost 50 touchdowns last year when he was the MVP and he was the best quarterback in the league. Now, is he old? Yes. By quarterback standards, he's got several years left, in my opinion.
Right.
Is he high paid? Yes, he is. Guess what? You have to pay a lot of money for the best quarterback in football, not named Patrick Mahomes, as far as I'm concerned. Would you give up a lot? Yes. Is he a pain in the butt at times? Absolutely. Do you want to win the 11 games that automatically come with having Aaron Rodgers or not? They have not done that since I was in diapers. So I don't understand anyone's logic that would say, well, I don't want to deal with him, or I don't want to give this up. The moment you get him, you're a playoff team with a chance to go to a Super Bowl. That should be the end of the conversation.
That's right. And this team, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not trying to be a homie here, but this lineup has to be significantly better than the one he's been having in Green Bay for quite some time, even without Deron Payne or John Allen or whatever you'd have to give up there in the swap, 2 1s, 2 2s, and Payne, let's say.
Yeah, well, so defensively, they're way better than Green Bay in my opinion. They're in an easier division, I think, to win. The East is down. They are positioned with some money. Now that would change a little bit if you went and got Rodgers. Picks would as well, but positioned to be able to wiggle and do some things that he might want to get done when he came in. And he would lose the arguably the best receiver in football right now, Devontae Adams, and the great tailback that he's got, who they just re-signed
Yep.
there as well, and Aaron Jones. But aside from that, I mean, those two weapons, like from a passing game standpoint, there might be more here. Not might, there is more here than there has been in
Definitely.
Green Bay for many, many years. Because, while Adams is better than McLaurin, you've got McLaurin, who's proven to be a pretty solid number one wide receiver. You've got Samuel, who they just spent on in the slot, who's better than anyone he's had there. I mean, even Randall Cobb. You on the outside, you would have, if De'Ami Brown's legit, that's great, but they've got Adam Humphries. At tight end, you've got Logan Thomas. Out of the backfield, you've got Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick. So you're not wanting for anything from a personnel standpoint. Now, I say all this to answer the question as to would they be, a good fit for him or what have you. Would he want to come here? They haven't won in a long time. I'd imagine there'd be several teams he'd rather play for. That's the first thing. Secondly, your first question is the most important one, which is he going anywhere? I don't really think that he is. I mean, if I was Green Bay, I would just hold on to him desperately. I wouldn't let him leave. And if that means he has to retire, then that stinks for him. But people say, well, you got to trade him and get a bunch of assets back. If you call his bluff and he's not showing up and he's actually going to retire, then I would probably trade him at that point. But that wouldn't happen before the start of this season, to be completely honest with you. I wouldn't just trade him now for a boatload of picks and prospects. He's too good a player. And frankly, he's upset. And a couple things I did are reasonable for him to be upset, but tough cookies. I mean, you're paid a lot of money to be the quarterback of a team that wins every year. And you got a chance to win a Super Bowl this year. You've been in the NFC title game the last 2 years. Come on back. We're not trading you. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. I wish and I hope that he becomes available for Washington's sake and that Washington's a real player. There's one other thing I want to throw out there, though, and I know this is long-winded, but this is the other thing that no one talks about. And this is just kind of spitballing. I do wonder what the interest level is for Rivera in Aaron Rodgers. And here's what I mean by that. Number one, Rivera recently, and I don't remember where he said this, but there was this comment that came out that Washington had done a lot of digging on the quarterback position, and they had kind of come to this realization that like having a guy that's one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league is not maybe the best way to win. And you can actually analytically go back and that's proven. I mean, that's true. Now, I think you have to have an elite quarterback. The numbers are skewed because a guy like Tom Brady's playing on discounts for years while he's always winning. But the average over like 20 some years, I think a buddy of mine did this math. Who's a numbers guy. The average spot in the quarterback rankings for like AAV, the year that a quarterback wins the Super Bowl since 2000, is like somewhere around 16th or 17th, which is kind of crazy. That's because of a lot of the guys that went in on rookie deals. Like we think of Russell Wilson, MVP player, makes all the money, Super Bowl champion. Well, he won the Super Bowl before he got paid. You could do this with a lot of guys, but like Ben Roethlisberger won before he got paid. So you look at the names now and you're like, oh, Big Ben. Yeah, he's an MVP type who makes all the money. But when those guys were winning, it was before the contract. So number one, Rivera and his team in the front office, I think are I don't know if that would mean you wouldn't be interested in Rodgers, but they have come to this decision, it seems like, that you don't have to pay a quarterback top of the line money to win. And then the other thing is Rivera right now is kind of like the lion that leads the whole pride. Like he's the unquestioned leader of this entire thing. He's the president. He's the GM. He's the head coach. He's got the whole lay of the land and no one really to challenge him. Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't do that. Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, they're just yes sir, no sir guys. You bring in Aaron Rodgers, it's Aaron Rodgers' team. I mean, that's the way the league is trending. That's just how this goes. Ask Matt LaFleur, ask Mike McCarthy, like those guys butted heads. So do you want that if you're on Rivera? Do you want an MVP, an elite player, a guy who automatically gets you 11 wins, but who might take, like you've built this culture, this locker room, like everybody follows you beating the drum, and now Rodgers would take the drumsticks. And so that to me is something, I'm not sure about in terms of just that rapport.
Week one at FedEx versus the Chargers seems like a good game. They've obviously pitted the offensive rookie of the year from last year with the defensive rookie of the year. It looks like we will follow that up with a Thursday game against the Giants. And maybe I saw Broncos for Halloween. Have there been any other games dropped since we started recording? Do you know?
I have not seen any since we've been on. The week 2 game against the Giants, I'm not sure if you mentioned that one.
Yeah, I think it's a Thursday nighter, right?
Yeah, Thursday night. So those are the 3 that I've heard. Yeah, I mean, home to start is nice. My one thought on the Giants game is, I know just from talking to coaches through the years, they love the Thursday night game kind of positioned in the stretch run because it's almost like a second bye. So if a coach had their druthers, they would want like a bye week early or a bye week really late. So what they love is when you get, like, say, the Thursday night game and the bye week several weeks apart. So it's very early, week 2 for that Thursday game. If Washington gets a late bye, say like week 11 or something, week 9, I think they'll be pretty happy because then they have like this early season 10-day break where they kind of rest up after a couple games. And then it's almost like having 2 byes. If they have a bye week earlier, though, like week 4, week 5, I think they're going to be really upset that Thursday game and the bye week are crammed so close together. And of course, they could get another Thursday night. I think you're still allowed to have 2. But I'm anticipating at least 2 more, maybe 3 more primetime games because they are interesting. I mean, Chase Young is a beloved player. Ron Rivera is a fan and a media favorite. And Fitzpatrick's a darling of the media, obviously. They're coming off of a division title. They're favorites in some places to win again. So I think they'll get some primetime love this year.
And I've noticed it becomes increasingly more expensive by the day to take the over on Washington at 8 wins, which I think is interesting. And to your point, I think it's because they've had a really nice offseason. All right, Grant, let's switch gears real quick. The basketball team, I don't know what to make of the Wizards, right? I mean, obviously Russell was hurt early and he's healthy now and looks like an MVP. And he got player of the week. Brooks got coach of the week. I mean, are we at the point now where Brooks has done enough that he's going to end up getting an extension? Because that really would make me quite sad.
Yeah, I think a lot of Wizards fans are contemplating, maybe worried is a better word, about that. Look, he has done enough to be in consideration. I know that's not what people want to hear, but with the season that they had, with the COVID issue early, you mentioned the Westbrook injury as well. It was kind of a nightmare first half for them, and he didn't lose the locker room. He came on my show on 106.7 The Fan at one point, and I directly asked him. It was not comfortable, but I said, like, is the team still listening to you? Have you lost the locker room? And he said, he kind of scoffed and said, absolutely not. And at the time, it's kind of one of those things like, are you sure? Well, that was like right before they went on their run, coincidentally. So even though it's not what people want to hear, he's done a really good job this year in the terms of the team turning it around, Westbrook getting healthy. Now, we can pick nits, and I do all the time, with little decisions in game or construction of the players on the floor and permutations of who's playing together and lineup stuff. Having said all that, I still would, and I still think they will go in a different direction. I think they're on the precipice now, as we've seen with Beal as a scoring title type guy and Westbrook playing at the top of his game. They with a decent offseason, there's no reason to believe next year, if they stay healthy, they couldn't be a top 4 or 5 team in the East. I mean, heck, the Knicks are doing that right now. It's not that hard to pull off, I don't think, in that conference right now. So that should allow for them to hire some really viable candidates. There should be interest in this job from some of the best options available. That's not to say Brooks isn't a quality NBA head coach, but he's been here a long time, and it might be time to just change things up a little bit. So,
and Tommy didn't hire him.
What's that?
And Tommy didn't hire him. That's not,
no.
That's not Tommy's hire.
True. Tommy was here, obviously, under Ernie, and they are presumably close. I mean, I bet they have a good relationship. They seem to work well together. I think it's more of a Ted question, honestly. I mean, Now, it's not like his contract continues. A lot of people act like he's under contract and they'd have to let him go. To my knowledge, his contract is up.
Right.
So there is no dead money to worry about. Like there's not, you're basically, am I going to pay him or pay someone else? So if I had to bet, I'd say they have a different head coach next year. Again, fans don't like this, but he actually has done a job that warrants him being in the mix, I would say, to be brought back. But I just think that the season they've had probably allows for you to shop in a different aisle now where you can go get some of the top guys available.
Are we getting spoiled by Westbrook? I mean, a triple-double every night is not usual. It has become the norm. He leads the team in reboundings. I don't even understand how that's possible. Leads the team in rebounds.
I mean, not only that, he's fifth in the NBA in rebounds per game. Like, as a guard.
And he's not stealing those rebounds. People said he's a rebound stealer. I've watched enough of these games now. He's not a rebound stealer. He's just oddly in the right place almost all the time.
It's so crazy. It's like uncanny. I can't describe it. I actually asked someone recently. I'm like, how does he do this? Because what you just said, I think is 100% true. Like, it's insane. Every rebound, it's like he has a magnet for the ball in his pocket or something. It's like the ball comes off the rim in some weird way, and he just happens to be standing there. He's also, it's a hustle thing. It's an effort thing. Rebounding is largely about positioning and work, but it is about kind of wanting and hustling back and being in position and being where you need to be. So nobody hustles more than that guy. I love his game. I really do. He is inefficient, and he'll make you pull your hair out with some shot selection and turnover stuff, but it's all baked in with the triple-double a night and the making his teammates better and the playing angry. I'm a fan of Russell Westbrook's, man. He's been a blast to watch. Last 20 games going into tonight's game, Wizards are 15-5, and he averages 23 points, 14 boards, 14 assists over 20 games. I mean, so what else do you need to know? I mean, he's played them almost single-handedly. Beal has obviously scored a lot of points, but he's their best player. He's their most complete player. He's played them into the playoffs.
It's incredible, and it's been fun and fantastic to watch. Brett, give us a couple of minutes for those that don't start following hockey until the playoffs. Caps are in. They start with the Bruins. I know it's hard to predict and forecast hockey just because of the nature of the way the puck goes. Tell us what we should be looking for in this first round matchup.
Yeah, it's a really tough matchup. So first of all, playoffs start on Saturday night for the Capitals. Game 1 against the Bruins, 7:15 at Cap One Arena. It is a tough matchup because the Bruins have actually been the best team in hockey since the trade deadline over the last close to 20 games, I think it is, of the regular season. Not only that, they allowed the fewest goals per game during that stretch over the last 17 or so games, 1.82 goals per game. So they've been the stingiest defensive club in hockey. So those two things just alone don't bode great. I will say that they had a very soft schedule at the end. The schedule was loaded where everyone just played the teams in their division over and over and over. They were in the East with the Capitals, and the Caps earlier in the year played the Devils a ton, who they swept in all 8 games. They played the Sabres, who they just pounded into submission, and the lot of Devils and Sabres games for the Bruins at the end of the year. So that somewhat explains how dominant they were. But having said that, they're still playing really well and they're very healthy. The bigger issue for the Capitals is they're not all that healthy. We don't really know what the status is of TJ Oshie, who's their glue guy, one of their most important players, top 6 winger, who's just critical on the power play, on the penalty kill, and at even strength. Additionally, in their final game, John Carlson was wearing a suit in the press box. He missed a couple of games at the end. He's one of the top defensemen in hockey and the top offensive defenseman in the sport over the last couple of years. I think he's going to be ready to go come Saturday night. I don't have any inside information. That's a hunch, but I'm presuming that he'll be on the ice. So that's a big deal if that's the case. The question is, though, with him, with Ovechkin, who's missed time recently, with Backstrom, who's missed time recently, with the rest of the players who have been banged up, are those guys going to be 100%? Like, just playing is one thing, but we've seen this in other sports, like with the Nats. You get a guy back and that's great, but the timing isn't there and it takes a few days. Next thing you know, it's been a week and they're 2 for their first 14 at the plate or something like that. So the question becomes, are they going to be able to play the best version of themselves? Also, oh, by the way, in the net, they had this competition going with Ilya Samsonov and Vitek Vanacek all year for the goaltender come playoffs. And Ilya may have just narrowly pulled ahead of Vitek. Samsonov's been unavailable in the COVID protocol for the last several days, and his status is unknown. Evgeny Kuznetsov, who was probably the best player on the Capitals in their cup run in the playoffs a couple of years ago, is in the COVID protocol. We don't know. Does he have COVID? Does he not? He's had it previously early this season, second time he's in this protocol. But he's been out now for long enough that he might have to skate and just work out for several days before he's even cleared to play again. So, that's a long-winded answer about their status, but that's all. I mean, that's the majority of the top guys on the team. There's questions. So here's the bottom line. If they're healthy enough to put their best foot forward, they are a little bit better than the Bruins as the regular season bared out, and they will, in a deep series that probably go 6 or 7 games, they'll have a chance to beat them. If they aren't healthy, and a lot of the guys I just named either don't play or can't be themselves, then it might not be a very good series for the Capitals. So it all really revolves around that. They are good enough. They are built well enough. They have a good enough coaching staff led by Peter Laviolette to go on a cup run. They do. A month ago, I expected that this would have been a deep playoff run. All of these injuries and turmoil and questions now kind of have me nervous, but they are good enough, if they are the A version of themselves, to be one of the last teams standing for sure.
Grant, thank you so much for giving us a little time today. Tell the folks where they can find you on Twitter and what you got coming up next.
Yeah, at Grant H. Paulsen on Twitter and on Instagram. Grant H. Paulsen is where you can find me on social. And listen to 106.7 The Fan. Do a show with Danny Rouillet every day from 2 to 6:30. So check that out. And those are the best ways to hear me yap.
Always a great time, Grant. Thanks.
Douglas, be well, buddy.
You got it.